Great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started because we don't have a ton of time together, and I want to make sure that we have enough time to talk through the different strategies I have for automating donor cultivation. So this is actually an adaptation of a different presentation that I typically do, but because it's a lunch breakout and I know that you guys have all been in sessions all day long, please feel free to just ask any questions along the way. I'm really happy to.
Why are we waiting? What time
Hi.
do we need to use restroom?
Sorry, I'm not sure if someone meant to.
Oh, oops.
Yeah, if everyone could mute themselves for the time being, that would be great. All right, excellent. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Everyone settle in. Great. Just letting everyone in here. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and get started and let people trickle in as they come. Thank you all for joining me on this breakout session. As I was saying earlier, I adapted this presentation to be a little bit more casual. So please feel free. Please stay muted if you don't have a question, but feel free to interrupt me as I go along. So this presentation is really focused on ways to automate donor nurture to help improve all of our lives as fundraisers to make that cultivating those relationships a little bit easier. So who is Whole Whale? If you're not familiar with us, we're a B Corp digital agency. We leverage web data and technology to help increase the impact for nonprofits. My name is Isabelle Brauer. I'm an account manager who specializes in fundraising at Whole Whale, and I also do a lot of webinars and conferences. So we have experience with lots of different nonprofits from a lot of different service areas, kind of all across the board. What we'll cover today is sort of the opportunity and motivation for donor nurture and the different kind of buckets that we put it in. So awareness into action, nurturing your list, and converting giving moments. So at Whole Whale, we really like to frame all of our work around this aware to care cycle. So what we think about when we are acquiring new donors is to think about how we're moving them along this cycle from being aware of our organizations, being aware of our work and the impact that we're having into becoming supporters of our organization. And so we really like to frame it in these three stages of attention into action, nurturing your list, and then converting giving moments. So opportunity and motivation. You are all here probably because you already know all of this, but summer is a super important time to deepen your investment in automating donor nurture tools and tactics. It's a great time to prioritize automating systems now to make sure that they are optimized for the most important time of the year, which is end of year fundraising. Investing in automating tasks also allows the staff to work more effectively to raise more money and scale social impact, which is what we all are trying to achieve. So why automate? For consistency. It reduces disruptions with staff turnover. It indicates responsiveness. It identifies where your leads are in the funnel, and basically it allows your team to find more time to make a bigger difference. So why is donor nurture so important? Automations keep users engaged after they expressed interest, and we know that engaged users are going to be better donors. It can take up to 24 months to recoup single donor acquisition costs. So once we have people in the pipeline, we want to make sure that we're consistently talking to them, nurturing that relationship to make it easier to convert them into donors. And we know that there'll be a higher chance of peer-to-peer fundraising and a greater potential for upgraded gifts. So alongside the sort of aware to care cycle at Whole Whale, we really like to think about donor relationships and donations as a form of commitment. Kind of one of my favorite analogies to use is that you wouldn't go on a first date with somebody and then immediately go and get married to them, which is why we shouldn't expect people to learn about our organizations and then immediately become donors. And we know that this commitment is a journey and not a destination that sort of requires more consistent commitment and more consistent engagement along the way. So there are a lot of reasons why people give, and some of the ones that I want to focus on are trust, altruism, and social dynamics. So we know that when we showcase the impact of our organization's work and who the people are who are accomplishing that work, that helps build trust and develop relationships with our donors. Altruism is another huge aspect of why people give. And that's something that we really want to capitalize on when we're working on email nurture, especially. And then social dynamics. We know that from friends to influencers, we're inspired to give through a lot of different channels and there's a lot of different motivations for that. So how do we increase attention to convert donors? So first of all, we want to drive traffic to our site. We want to encourage people to join our email lists. We want to get value from we want to give them value from different stories and campaigns, and then they'll become donors. So one of the big things that we like to talk about at Whole Whale as well are these key performance indicators. So one of the reasons why this is so important is that if we aren't measuring success against really specific goals, then sorry, if you want to ask a question, feel free to send over in the chat and I'll try and answer it along the way. Someone just said, do you agree with the idea that the method the donor makes the donation should be the way that you communicate with them? Snail mail equals direct mail, online equals email. So I will actually get to that a little bit later on, but we definitely think that while it's important to categorize where people came from, it's not always necessary to only communicate with them on that platform. So one of the reasons why we think KPIs are so important at Whole Whale is that if we're putting all of this work and energy and we're investing a ton of staff time into the work, then we want to be able to measure our performance. And we know as nonprofit staff that we have stakeholders that we need to report to as well. So how are we going to get potential donors from the awareness into the action stage? So we know that it's incredibly important that people know about the work that we're doing because familiarity correlates to trust. I think we can all think about organizations that come to mind when we think about things like reproductive rights or voting rights. There are certain things that come to mind because they're organizations that we are familiar with. We know that being top of mind increases the chances of success. Mental decay is real. I think I can speak for probably all of us that it's Wednesday. I could not tell you what I did on Monday. If I would have to really think about it because we know that we're super busy. We're doing all of these different things and that mental decay is real and that it's hard to keep things top of mind if we're not giving constant reminders. Not to mention that there's endless competition out there for supporters, especially in the nonprofit space. So we really view all website visitors as potential donors. This is a screenshot from a client of ours, Power Poetry, that really shows the different traffic sources and where people are coming from. And paying attention to where people are coming from, to Eliza's point earlier about where you're acquiring people, is really important in terms of knowing how to best communicate with them and also what are going to be the most effective strategies to convert them into donors. So SEO. SEO is our first tactic that we want to talk about, and it's the practice of improving and promoting a website in order to increase the number of visitors the site receives from search engines. So the ultimate goal of SEO is organic traffic growth that leads to brand awareness and goal conversions like email signups or donations. And really, SEO, I think, can seem really intimidating to people, but it's really about giving people the right answers when people ask questions. So thinking about, okay, if people are asking about vaccines, if I'm a nonprofit that is providing information about vaccines, then I want to be thinking about what are the types of things that people are going to be Googling and asking questions about that I can help them answer in my own work. So you might be asking yourself, how is this automated? How does this fit into the automation scheme? So one of the things that we like to think about with SEO is developing evergreen content. So with SEO content, we try to focus on publishing content that will have a really long shelf life. So think like a searcher and related needs and answer questions that people have. So drop in the chat if you have any ideas about what evergreen content could be for your organization. Something that's not an example of evergreen content would be something related to Mother's Day or Father's Day, because that's very specific, tied to a moment in time, seasonal moment. So evergreen content is content, we want to optimize our content for SEO best practices and have it be on our website so that it's driving traffic. People are finding our content really easily. And it's answering a question that people are asking. It fills a need. So it could be seasonally affected or relevant. So for example, I had a client that had an article that was really centered on Thanksgiving. And so they wanted, that was really driving people to their site, but that was only really happening around Thanksgiving. So they tried to think about ways in which they could use different language to drive people to the site, even though that topic was more around Thanksgiving, that would be relevant all year round. So some tactics, you might be thinking, hi, I kind of know what SEO is. I feel okay about it, but I'm not really sure how to approach it. So one of the most important things is to structure and host it so that Google finds it quickly. So that's really important to think about site speed, to think about the ways in which you're hosting your content right now. If you have amazing content that is really relevant to an audience, but they can't find it, then it's not going to serve you. So another thing to think about when you're developing content is actually not to stress SEO too much, because we know that we want to write content that matters and then think about the SEO implications afterwards. We don't want to write content just because we think it's going to bring traffic to our site. It needs to be relevant to our organization and relevant to our work. So it's really helpful to find themes in your cause industry. So doing some research, finding some data about what people are searching for, or what kind of articles do your competitors have, what kind of things draws your attention to the different issues. One of our main recommendations for nonprofits is to focus each article around one keyword. That helps kind of give you a framing and also helps make it a little bit less intimidating when you're first getting into SEO work. Our sort of North Star here is to we want to increase the percentage in organic traffic to websites year over year. So we tell people that they should aim for a 20% increase in organic traffic year over year. So let's say we developed great SEO practices, we have a lot of great content that is driving people to the site, but if there's not something there to collect them, then how are we going to convert them into donors? So we don't want site visitors to become ghosts in the night. Web traffic is great, but what we really focus on is conversion. So let's get them to the next step, which is email sign up. So pop-ups and CTAs. This is an excellent automated tactic for collecting emails. Pop-ups are basically can be email sign-up forms that appear based on user action. So you've probably been on a website and scrolled down a little bit, and then a pop-up comes up. And it can be annoying to have those pop up, but that being said, it's also can be really effective if you do it at the right time so that you're not annoying people, but really providing them the information, the steps they need to kind of get the information that they want. So static CTA types are inline asks, content locks, which we'll get to in a minute, petitions, and header buttons. So those are just like some examples of static CTAs. So those are things that don't move, that don't pop up, that you can put on your website to collect user info. And the goal here is to provide a trigger and make it easy for users to accomplish their key actions on your site. So some tactics to help make pop-ups more effective than annoying is to add to top of funnel pages. So what do I mean by top of funnel? If you think back to that marketing funnel that I showed a couple minutes ago, top of funnel is basically the very beginning of the user journey with your organization. So if someone wants to know about your mission, that would be a top of funnel page that you might want to put a pop-up on to say, hey, like, want to learn more? Give us your email so we can send you most important information. So you don't want to show on pages like with dedicated actions like donate. unless you're asking them to donate. But we really recommend that you show these pop-ups on pages that have more informative content that is going to then direct the user how to engage further. We recommend leaving white space and keeping the form really short. We know that the more information people have to give, the less likely they are that they're going to complete it. And we want to make sure the button is really clearly defined. So you can see here that the first name and last name is in white, the email is in white, but the button is in this dark blue, which will hopefully compel people to click it. And always have an opt-out. It's tempting to have an opt to not include that, but we want to make sure that we're acquiring really quality leads. And if we don't give people the option to opt out of email communications, then that's not going to be a quality lead. So, sorry about that. My mouse has a mind of its own today. So static CTA tips, really important to make it mobile friendly. We know that there's a huge amount of mobile users who are visiting our sites, and we want to make it as effective and easy as possible for them to navigate on their phone. We recommend using high contrast buttons to kind of draw the user attention to that static CTA. Definitely A/B test. This is something we'll talk about a little bit more, but one of the things we like to do at Whole Whale is implement A/B testing, which basically involves testing like a very specific element of something against something that is very similar to see which one performs better. And always include a form at the bottom of your landing pages with a more direct CTA than the footer form. We want to give people as many opportunities as possible to engage with our organization. So the third sort of automated tip that we have is this idea of reciprocity. So in the chat, feel free to drop what kind of free mints you might have. This concept comes from this book called Influence by Robert Cialdini. He shares a case study about where a waiter's tips increase 3% when diners get a mint, and 14% with 2 mints, and 23% when the waiter drops off the bill and returns to offer a second mint. So this concept is basically that in exchange for someone's email address, we're offering them something that's going to be really useful to them and that is really relevant to them. So one of my favorite things to think about is like when I'm talking to clients is to think about what kind of useful things I've gotten as mints from sites. So feel free to drop that in the chat and share ideas. So here's some terms to know with reciprocity. A content locker is a form that hides a download so that you need to sign up in order to receive the incentive. So an example of this would be if I am on a cancer research website and I want to get a guide on genetic testing for cancer, then that's a good opportunity for the organization to put a pop-up, a content locker, so that I have to give them my user info to get that additional guide. And a lead magnet like that guide is an incentive that's offered online to people in exchange for their contact information. So other examples of this would be an ebook, a PDF, a wallpaper, a sticker, something shareable that they can share on social is always a great idea. So reciprocity and lead gen advertising. We'll talk a little bit more about Facebook advertising towards the end, but definitely consider running lead gen ads to collect emails from users that are similar to your current donors or customers. So to sweeten the pot, what you can do is include a free download or quiz result that is shared with them over email through an automated workflow. So from these examples on the right, you can kind of see that they're asking, do you need this? Download this, sign up for this, so that in exchange for my email, I'm getting something in return. Okay, so we've driven people to our site. We've used pop-ups and CTAs to get their email addresses. We have offered them reciprocity by giving them a download or something that they can engage with. So what's next? We want to make sure that they're interested in our content and engaging. So I want you to think about what meaningful actions users can take on your site. So it could be requests for more info, it could be resource downloads, it could be email signups, it could be donations, it could be program applications. What are people going to your site going to be able to take action to engage with your organization? So let's move on to nurturing our list. This is a huge piece of automation, and this is what the majority of my presentation will really focus on. So we have the email address. We're starting to make those connections with people. but we need to build up to that donate ask. As you might remember from the beginning of my presentation, we wouldn't go on a first date with somebody and then get married to them in the same way that you probably aren't going to donate to an organization after getting one email from them. So we want to build up to donation asks through ongoing relationship building using automated email workflows. So why is donor segmentation really important here? It's important to create a solid foundation that will scale and provide as much info as possible. So segmented emails get almost 670% increase in revenue, and segmentation makes accounts clear and clean for all admins sending emails. So if you have high staff turnover, if you have a lot of different people working in the marketing department, then that's a great example of when something automated can kind of help keep that really consistent throughout any changes that might occur. So how do you do this? It's easy to talk about it and a lot more challenging to do, as in most things with nonprofits. We recommend identifying ways, around 3 to 5, that a subscriber can relate to your organization, and then building lists in your email platform based on those programs or content pieces. So somebody asked earlier, should I communicate with people in the way that they learned about us? And not necessarily, but a great thing to do is to say, okay, this group of people signed up through a really specific pledge, so we should probably keep them posted about the pledge results in order to keep them engaged. So after you've identified those different ways that people engage with you and then building your list after that, you want to think about the different ways in which you can categorize group categories to provide more granular info about how those subscribers relate to you. So depending on the platform, this might be using tags, this might be using groups, this might be adding notes to their sort of profiles in your CRM. It's definitely very platform dependent. But we definitely recommend this kind of no matter what platform you're using, even if you're just using Google, of trying to figure out a way to categorize these supporters. But if you are using a more advanced email platform, then creating automatically updated segments based on subscriber behavior, depending on the capability of your platform, will help you keep track of your super fans and make sure that you're really talking to the right group of people at the right time. So some tips about how to do this and how to think about different categories. So donation amount, thinking about major donors, mid-level donors, minor donors, donation behavior. So thinking about active donors, lapsed donors, repeat or monthly donors. Those different groups need different levels of communication depending on who they are. And one of the things that we also like to say at Whole Whale is that if you're doing the right thing at the wrong time to the wrong people, then it's the wrong thing to be doing. And then acquisition channel. So if someone came in via a Facebook ad, that's going to be really different than if they signed up in an in-person event or over direct mail or at a fundraising event. So it is really helpful to keep track of where people are coming from so that you can best use that information in your segmentation. So email nurture. So you collected the email leads, you have categorized them appropriately. So why do we put so much emphasis on email nurture? It's because you have all of the information you need now, and you have a direct form of communication with those supporters to really nurture that relationship. So it's a direct connection. There's a ton of capacity for personalization. There's lots of data that you can collect over email for testing and optimizing, and people need reminders. So it's important to keep people really engaged with your organization through that kind of repetition of the impact that you're having, of the work, of who you are, of the people behind the organization. So the sort of 3 assets we feel like is really important to email nurture are messaging, data, and remarketing capabilities. So again, why is this so important? Email is an opportunity to build trust and commitment and share content that matters. You can increase the ROI of time spent managing lists and sending emails if you've already automated all of that content and sort of organize your contacts in a way that allows for that very specific messaging. As I said earlier, if no one sees your message, then no one will take action. So you want to make sure that your emails are engaging to increase eyeballs on there, brand loyalty, and support. And according to MailChimp, a welcome series yields 51% more revenue than a single welcome email. So the how, what are the different automation types and what are some tips for how to do it? So one of the most important pieces to have in place is a welcome series. It helps introduce supporters to your organization, and sort of provides the right information to grow that relationship over time. So we really recommend sending a welcome series that will mimic the kind of consistent timing and frequency of email messages moving forward. Donation appeals that are automated, so sending out one email that has more information about projects and then sending a follow-up email to people who have opened the first one is a great way to target more engaged users. So doing a win back campaign, so reminding people of a resource or a program if they supported, if they previously opened emails, if they hadn't opened emails before. Audience specific, so if you're targeting a group of people for certain actions in certain areas or by certain interests, that's another way to approach building automations. And thank yous, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But some tips for how to approach email nurture is testing time and frequency. It's different for every organization and different for every audience. So really thinking about, when are people opening my emails? When are people clicking my emails? When are people unsubscribing? Those are all really important things to think about when you're creating these automations and thinking about when to send them. Personalizing. So even though it's robot delivered, make it human centered. You can do this using merge tags or other similar formats to pull in first names or last names, kind of pulling in any personalized information you can, but also including photos and videos of your staff, really putting a human face to the work that you're doing to show all of the work that is required and necessary to kind of make the work that you're doing happen. So segmenting, of course, is hugely important. If you are sending a donation appeal to a group of people who are reoccurring donors, then that's kind of the wrong audience to be talking to because they're already supporting your organization. And then A/B testing. So emails are a great opportunity to test subject lines, content length, pictures, videos. Highly recommend starting to do this before the end of the year so that you can be in really tip-top shape when it comes. So someone asked, what about a welcome series via direct mail for those that don't engage via email? We have an older donor population. So I really like that idea of continuing to send consistent communications with a donor population that might not be online. I don't think you can automate that in quite the same way. So you still have to have that kind of user, you have to have that capacity on your staff to really execute on that. And I don't think it gives quite the same opportunities for engagement because you're not giving people links to click on and things like that. However, I think that if most of your donors are offline and of an older sort of age cohort, then a direct mail welcome series on a smaller level is a great thing to consider because it keeps your organization top of mind and gives people frequent opportunities to engage. So I would still include call to actions like sign up or call or send, whatever it might be. So some tools for email automation, Zapier and Integrately are two that I have used before and heard of, which is basically allows information to be connected from, for example, Facebook to your email platform to trigger a welcome series or trigger another form of automation. It demonstrates responsiveness when you do this so that you can kind of send something immediately. It makes people feel like they're being paid attention to and that the people on the other side of the screen are really involved and care about who they are. So some must-haves that we recommend for email nurture is a consistent from address because that creates sort of familiarity. So saying from Isabelle at Whole Whale, if to all of my fundraising focused emails, that will kind of show people that when an email arrives from us in their inbox and it's from me, then they know it's going to be about fundraising. So using merge tags for subscriber names to personalize, using eye-catching subject lines and headers to really get people to open your emails and engage with them. If you have really low open rate, you should probably be testing your subject lines. So including visual elements, we all like to engage with visuals and sort of moving things. We have a short attention span, and so including more things that are interesting for people to look at will increase the time they spend on your email. And then using really clear CTAs, so that's call to actions with UTM tagged URLs. So I don't really have time to get into this today. We have some resources on our website about this, but really making sure that you're using, you're tagging all of the links that you are using with UTM parameters so that you can assess where people are coming from when you get a donation. Did it come from an email? Did it come from your website? Things like that. And then having consistent design as well. If I get an email from the same place and it looks different every time, then I'm going to kind of not have an understanding of who they really are and what their brand voice is and things like that. So frequency, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you should definitely test to see what's going to work best for your organization. We recommend testing of like both across automations, but keeping an eye on it because it changes. And unfortunately, we have to kind of constantly be looking at our user data to help best inform the messaging that we're using. We recommend building a consistent monthly calendar that includes A/B testing opportunities and anticipates key dates. So holidays, awareness days, awareness months, things that are really timely for your organization's work. So some of the goals of email nurture are to keep users engaged after they initially express interest without adding any more work for us. One of our biggest sources of nonprofit pride is also one of the biggest challenges is that one person is doing the work of 3 people. So really thinking about how you can automate your email to minimize that existing time that you're spending on it, I think is a huge, huge value add. And then priming users to open and click your emails by setting expectations for what you will send and when. So if I get an email from an organization every Friday morning, then I kind of know what that's going to contain. And if it's relevant for me, I'm going to click it and I'm going to engage with it more. It can help subscribers find key resources. So let's say that you are less focused on getting donations, but you really need people to download a resource or sign a pledge. Then the Welcome Series is a great opportunity to guide people towards that action. And it can take multiple touch points to convert people to donors, which is why you need to offer them really consistent opportunities to do so. So in terms of actually converting giving moments, we drove traffic to our site. We have put in a lot of work to set up these email automations. How can we build trust and foster that altruism that I talked about in the very beginning to convert those people into donors? So we like to use automated advertising campaigns to retarget our supporters who are engaging with us the most. If you think back to this funnel, we have people engaged, they're clicking our emails, they're opening our emails, but how do we get them to the bottom? And it's really that this group of people needs a really consistent support network that is reminding them to give and encouraging them to give really consistently. So one of the ways to do that is once they've already donated. So we recommend thanking our donors 4 or more times. So there's a confirmation page that pops up when you're done giving a donation. There's an opportunity to give a follow-up email that's more personalized. There's a gift anniversary, which I think is a great idea, especially if you're trying to talk to lapsed donors and get them to engage again. And then there's different ways to kind of choose your own adventure. You can thank them during a campaign and say, thank you for your support for last year. Thanks for signing up. Here, we're running this campaign right now that's really, we think that is, really relevant to your interests, whatever it may be. And then in the end of year appeal, we know that we have to send a ton of emails at the end of the year to get the results that we want, and making sure that we're thanking people for their support, reminding them of why we're so grateful for them is a huge part of that reciprocity piece as well. So making the connection in email nurture is so important to converting supporters. So humanizing the work that you're doing by adding that personalization, highlighting stories and impact. So really saying, with your support, we've achieved X, Y, Z, featuring images and statistics that help demonstrate that, and then using personalization as much as possible. One of the things I really recommend if you have high net worth donors is to send an individual email from like a Google Mail or something like that, rather than an automated platform, to really show that someone is paying attention and really cares about that donation. So we only have a few more minutes and I want to leave some time for questions at the end, but one of the things that we like to talk about at Whole Whale a lot is this concept of drumbeat advertising. And there's a lot of different platforms. The Google Ad Grant, you can use that. You can use the Google Ad Grant for this. You can use YouTube or Twitter. But what we really like to talk about and focus is Facebook. And one of the reasons why we think drumbeat ads are so important is that we know that at the end of the year, there's going to be high competition. It's going to be really expensive to run ads during that time of year. But we know that we need to kind of capitalize on that end of year giving momentum. So we like to offer many giving moments throughout the course of the year, rather than just relying on that at the end, given the constraints around that. So we like to offer regular storytelling opportunities and asks to amplify our ongoing work. And why that calendar is so important that I mentioned earlier is that you can tie these narratives together. So talking about this project that you're working on in January and then continuing to talk about it through September, then you can say, look at all the work we've done. Remember where we were when we started. With your support, we can take it even further and reach our goals. So some other sort of tactics to use in drumbeat ads is to use, if there's like a current situation, there's an opportunity to help by doing XYZ. This is really relevant for people who do disaster relief fundraising. A donor match, we do this a lot during the end of the year, but this is a great tactic to employ throughout the year as well. So giving a specific window to double their gift by. Helping one unit versus a broad statistic. So really saying, your gift can help, your support can help this specific person, this specific initiative. Thinking about the personal identity alignment of your supporters. So this is why learning about your supporters and paying attention to the ways that they're engaging with your work is so important, because it also informs the kind of messaging that you're going to use. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the Google Ad Grant is a great resource to get $10,000 from Google and free advertising dollars. If you are a qualified nonprofit, definitely recommend checking that out. The Ad Grant is great for growing awareness and testing different strategies. Someone asked, I've always wondered where the double part of the gift comes from. Seems like imaginary money. So definitely don't say that unless you can double it. But oftentimes organizations have higher net worth donors who are willing to. Another sort of tactic that you could use is including in your emails and your communications a note about whether or not their company matches gifts. Sites like Double the Donation, actually, a lot of companies use sites like that to offer matching gifts, and a lot of companies do match gifts, but people might not know about it. So one of the other big tools that we like to talk about is remarketing. So using the Facebook pixel, you can actually create custom audiences about people who visited your site before, or like lookalike audiences of people who look like your current supporters. And it's a great way to reach people that have visited key pages on your site. So if you can target site visitors using the pixel, that is part of having a Facebook business account. So definitely check that out if that's something that you're interested in and not already employing. We know that the iOS 14 impact that some of you may have heard about is impacting the way that Facebook is tracking that data, but we have found workarounds with that, and we haven't seen a significant change in campaign performance for our own clients. So a couple more tactics here: peer-to-peer fundraising, birthday fundraisers, direct click to donate, and then once supporters are committed, you can activate them to do peer-to-peer fundraising as well. So unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I'll just leave this summary up here. But to reiterate, donor cultivation is a journey and not a destination, which is why employing these automated strategies can be super helpful in kind of converting your supporter base. You can turn traffic into action by using some of the tactics that we talked about to collect emails and start building those relationships. Use automated advertising campaigns, whether it be Facebook or Google Ads or whatever, to acquire donors and make sure you're thanking them. And then really use email as much as you can. Once you've acquired that information from your user, then that's a direct line to them, and it's definitely something to think about. So feel free to ask any questions in the chat in these last few minutes. Somebody asked, what do you suggest for getting started with A/B testing? We have never done it. So one of the things to really think about with A/B testing is to consider what form you're going to do it in. So email or ads. Ads are more complicated, but email or site pop-ups, we have a lot of resources on our website, but you basically have to think about what options are available to you, and try and use everything, like use all of your content, look at all of your content, see if you have an image of a person versus an image of a graphic, that's one way to think about it. Testing subject lines. So A/B testing is a little too complicated to go into right now, but it's essentially isolating one thing to change and testing what kind of performance that has. So I recommend checking out our website. We have a ton of tools about that. And there's a lot of great literature out there as well about that. There's different sort of tactics to employ. So any tips for analyzing engagement metrics that might be affected with the upcoming Apple Mail privacy update? That's a great question. And unfortunately, we don't have any tips for foolproof strategies because we don't really know how that's going to fully impact things yet. One of the things I would recommend is to check out your Google Analytics setup, because there are ways that you can still track what people are doing over email using Google Analytics, but it definitely is going to impact email performance. And it'll be interesting to see how platforms sort of respond to that, because we don't really know what's going to happen initially. So I do recommend setting up Google Analytics if you don't have that already, and seeing the ways in which you can track user behavior through GA rather than in your email platform. Awesome. Well, thank you guys all so much for joining me. I'm sorry I was a little chaotic with everyone coming in and out, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let's see, there's one more chat. Be sure to check out our website. We have a lot more resources available. My presentations are usually a little bit longer as well, so I have a lot more to say about this. I will send everybody the link to rejoin the whole chat. Let's see. Great. So sending this link to everybody. And I hope that you guys all have a great time at the summit, and stay in touch over email. Don't feel free to reach out. Thanks, everyone. Bye.